The House tonight will vote on the latest coronavirus relief package, the $3 trillion HEROES Act. But Democratic leaders could be facing an uphill fight to get it passed. Joining us live from Washington right now, Congresswoman Kendra Horn. First of all, Congresswoman, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Dan.
You were one of the first Democratic lawmakers I saw to come out and say you would oppose the HEROES Act. What made you a no vote?
Dan, we are in an unprecedented time of health and economic crisis due to COVID-19. And any stimulus and relief packages that we pass need to be timely, targeted, and transparent. The HEROES Act, though it has good provisions, doesn't meet those measures. In order to be timely, we have to get the relief where it is most urgently needed, to our states and local governments, to our small businesses, and to individuals and families that are suffering. That means it has to be bipartisan. It has to be able to pass the House, the Senate, and be signed into law. This is not a bipartisan piece of legislation. So we have to keep working targeted, sure that in this time of crisis, we are focusing our efforts and the funds and relief where it needs to go, and that it is focused on COVID-19 related issues. This package includes things that are well outside of that scope and transparent. Dan, this is an 1,800-page bill, but we got the text to on Tuesday, and we're now being asked to vote on it on Friday. This is over $3 trillion. We have a responsibility to our taxpayers to make sure that the money that we appropriate, the programs we put into place are being used responsibly, and we have to make sure that there is transparency and the ability to debate and get this across the finish line, because too many people need help now.
Congresswoman, even if this gets through the House, and that's looking less and less likely as more Democrats pile on as no votes, the Senate already saying it's dead on arrival there. So we're going to be back to the drawing board. You mentioned targeted in things we need to look at. What are the things Republicans and Democrats need to come together on to get a new package passed?
There are a number of things that we have to come together on. And I know that there is a pathway forward because we've done it in the previous packages, and because I've been working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to ensure that we get more funding for our state and local governments. So for Oklahoma cities and towns that rely solely on sales tax to make ends meet, they're not forced to cut critical positions for first responders, our fire, our police departments, and other critical services that our communities need. That includes fixes to the PPP program so that our small businesses can keep their doors open and the lights on throughout this crisis. It includes ensuring that people have access to health insurance. I introduced a piece of legislation to help COBRA recipients, so people that have lost their jobs, that had their health insurance through their job, can keep their health insurance without breaking the bank. And those are the things that we need to work on, as well as tribal funding for our tribes, funding for our healthcare testing, tracing, and making sure that people get access to these critical services. There is strong bipartisan support for these issues, and we have to keep working on it.
Congresswoman, before we let you go vote, I wanted to get your take. Today starts phase 2 of Oklahoma's reopening. I want to get your thoughts on how you think that's going so far.
Dan, I think we've got so many different challenges ahead of us as we open back up. We have to make sure that we are addressing both the health and economic consequences, and we have to be smart and intentional in doing so. Again, going back to following the advice of the CDC and the public health experts and monitoring everything that's happening, because the last thing that we want is another outbreak that forces us to close down again. So I think we need to be thoughtful and intentional and take the advice of CDC experts, wash our hands, cover our faces, and be socially distant when we're doing so, and continue to monitor through testing and contact tracing and being intentional when we are working together. We've got to remember this is not just a health issue; it's an economic issue, but all of these things are impact one another, and we've all got to come together to get the help and relief into the communities that need it.
Congresswoman Kendra Horn joining us live from Washington. Congresswoman, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Dan.
Take care.